What do you get when you mix the Goonies, the nostalgia of the 80s, and death metal demons from hell? You get this movie. And welcome back to the web's first must-see comic and nerd culture show. Welcome to Comic Universe. I'm your host as always, C-Dubbs, guys, and I'm riding solo on this video, guys. And today, for the 31-day Halloween horror movie challenge, our review is The Gate from Vestron Videos. This is a 1987 Canadian-American Halloween horror movie cult classic, if there ever was one. Now, I remember as a kid, this movie being everywhere. Any video store you went to, all over cable, all over, like, everything. It was on regular TV. Like, I couldn't escape this movie. And I remember as a kid not liking it as much as I do now. It was actually my brother's, one of his favorite movies. And I think a part of me just, as siblings, if you will, especially brothers, everything he liked, I wanted to make it a point that whatever I liked was better. But as I grew older and watched it, I started to appreciate it more and more and more. What's really awesome about this movie is that, believe it or not, it is a PG-13 movie. But it is one of the very few that legitimately shows that it can be done and done very, very well, considering the content. Now, this movie does star Louis Tripp and Stephen Dorff, who's best known as Snow on the Blade trilogy, or in the first movie at the very least. He plays Glenn, who was our main protagonist, if you will. It is also directed by Tibor Takacs. I'm not quite sure if I'm pronouncing that completely right. Anyway, this movie starts off very, very weird. It starts off with kind of like a dream that kind of pseudo turns real and seems like it really happened type of thing. Basically, some suburban kids here in America end up finding the gateway to hell. And when I say that this movie follows every single Halloween scary movie trope and stereotype, it does. And I think maybe a lot of those stereotypes may have originated from this movie, to be honest with you. We're talking parents leave home, parents say don't have a party. Next scene, of course, what do you think there is? A party. The older sister watching the younger brother, and the younger brother's not allowed at the party. He has to stay in his room with his friend. And they're all downstairs listening to the best of the 80s pop music, dressed in there with their slap wrist bracelets and their hair ponytails tied in a sideways knot. And for all intents and purposes, they're probably playing Skip It down in the laundry room or the kitchen, if you will. And oh no, they're smoking a cigarette. Everything that was in, like, 80s pop culture, like, is just in this one scene, while the brother is upstairs with his friend who might be a year older than him, not quite sure. At the very least, he's a little taller than him, and he's kind of a dorky, nerdy guy, but he's also a hardcore death metal guy, and they're upstairs listening to their hardcore death metal, while his sister's downstairs listening to that stupid pop music, if you will. And basically, they actually play, light as a feather, stiff as a board, and they end up levitating her little brother up into the sky when he finally crashes the party. And what's really strange about this scene is that, I would be freaking out if I floated somebody to the sky. At first, everyone's like, oh, you're lifting him, and then all of a sudden he's floating away, and you're just like, what the heck? I would be freaking out personally. But, no one seems to really be too freaked out about this. They end up, lightning strikes a tree, and the tree falls over and leaves this crater in the ground. And they find these stones out in the ground, and by removing these stones, they basically start the process of the gates of hell being opened. And it just needed a sacrifice, if you will. And unfortunately, the neighbor, I think, killed her dog, if I remember correctly. And the dog actually died, and they bury him in that hole, unfortunately, giving that sacrifice to the demons, if you will. What I remember most about this movie is what I thought was always claymation. Okay, turns out after watching the DVD and watching the special features, was not claymation. There are these little minions, if you will, that are adorable slash terrifying slash stupid looking all at the same time, and they move really weird and wonky. And
Let me take a look first. Good idea.
I think you better come back. Shh. Shut up, you guys. Come back. What do you want? What is it? Come on! Hurry up! Hurry up!
you know what? Kind of what added to me thinking that they were claymation all these years and rewatching and watching the special features, it turned out these were real people in real suits. They just built everything to a grander scale and filmed everything at an angle to make them look much smaller than they actually were. And it just blew my mind that in 1987, obviously, computers and technology, we just couldn't green screen something, and so you had to think of innovative ways to, make something look as realistic as possible. And that now explains to me why these looked so good on camera. And these little minion demons are probably no bigger than maybe 2 to 3 feet at best. And they just wreak havoc. Throughout the movie, they can form together to create other creatures or monsters or zombies. And just... I remember there's the kid just engulfing myself in as this kid, what I would do, and everything that this kid was like. He was a smart ass to anyone who like dogged him for being too young. Like his sister's older friends are like, "Oh, you're a jit, you're young, get upstairs, you don't belong hanging out with us cool kids." And he would snap back at them real quick. He didn't take no BS, and that was kind of like me as I grew up as a kid. And I was able to engulf myself as a kid. Now, rewatching it as an adult, instead of feeling like I was that kid, it was just all nostalgia. Seeing all the 80s tropes and seeing all the, practical effects was just so beyond enjoying, if you will, to me now. Even as a kid, I didn't necessarily think it was too scary, but the situations were more scary and the atmosphere, because everything is this grayish, bluish tone when things are going bad, lightning striking, the fog effects. Whenever the fog started to roll in, you knew something bad was about to happen. Clearly, like every scary movie, there's a few jump scares here and there, and they're all relatively pretty decent. And then at the there's a part in the movie, or another thing that is another like stereotype, right? You play the record backwards, especially a death metal, track backwards, and it speaks the incantation. And of course, they do that. They play it backwards, and it speaks these Latin words or whatnot, and opens up the gates to hell after the sacrifice of the dog. And hijinks ensue. And there was even a scene where the little boy, Glenn, he ends up getting an eyeball in his hand, and it looked so real to me as a kid too, and even as an adult, I'm like, that is a really good prosthetic hand. And I remember him, not knowing what to do, and he ends up stabbing himself in the eye, in his hand, and I was just like, would I have done that? Could I have had the balls to do that? It's absolutely wonderful. And then there's this big giant. All the minions kind of get together, and this big giant minion comes out of the ground, out of the hole in the house, and is just probably 14 feet tall I don't even know. No, I'm way more than 14 feet, more like 40 feet tall. And he's just in the house, and you get this stereotype of something that was mentioned, and I don't want to spoil it, something that was mentioned in the beginning half of the movie. Okay, turns out to be the prop needed to kind of initiate the end of it all, if you will. What kind of helps them set the rights, right the wrongs, if you will. And this movie is just such fun and nostalgia if you've seen it. And if you didn't, it gives you a good glimpse into what movies were like back then. And it allows you to see, how original Hollywood was growing up as a horror movie fan in the 80s and early 90s, where, you know, you didn't have those green screens and you didn't have, you know, all this money to just throw at something, or computers to just make something, you know, look a certain way. You had to think of creative ways to pull it off. You know, and sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't. Sometimes, even when they didn't, they added to the charm of the film. And for the most part, these really do connect. And I challenge you guys to go and check this out if you've never seen it, and really go in with an open mind. Because it's definitely, if you're a, you know, product of the 2000s, if you're born in 2000s, this could be somewhat of a chore to you to go back and watch. But Lionsgate has released an updated version. Everything like crisp, clear, HD. Everything is great. Like you can compare the two, and it's like night and day from the original version to the Lionsgate version. So I challenge you guys, go out and watch this movie. Let us know here at the Universe what you guys think, because this is one of my favorite movies now as an adult. Thinking back over my childhood, where it totally changed my mind with a different perspective. The more I watch it, the more I find myself enjoying it. Anyway, Universe, if you've seen The Gate, let us know in the comments below. If you haven't, make sure to add this to your 31-day Halloween horror movie challenge, guys. Let us know in the comments below what you guys thought, what movies you guys have watched, and if you guys are still having fun with this challenge. We're going to keep this going. We got a few more days left. We're only 5 days in, guys. Till next time, I'm C-Dubbs. Oh, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on the video as well. And I'll see you in the universe. Peace.